So oftentimes we hear about like in Hollywood movies on the TV that a person sued another company or a former or an employee sued their former employer for millions of dollars for like sexual harassment lawsuit or stuff like that, and they were awarded millions of dollars by the jury. And it's like a common knowledge, like suing someone else is pretty common, and people get paid a lot for that. So I wanted to talk about like the ground reality of what it's like to sue your former employer, because as someone who is currently in the process of suing my former employer, I know what it's like, what some of the challenges we face when pursuing a lawsuit. And it's nothing like what is shown in the movies where you just sue someone for something minor, and you get paid millions of dollars in pain and suffering. Like, it's really not anything like it's shown in the movies. So I want to list out some of the reasons of why that is the case, and why it's so extremely challenging. The actual reality is not really uh, you it will be like some easy pie where your employer did something bad and you get paid millions. That's really not what happens. It's extremely challenging to find a lawyer, pursue the legal claim, and if anything, get paid something. So I want to talk about some of the reasons why that is the case and what the reality is like. So first thing first, the employment laws in the US are some of the weakest in the entire country or the entire world. Like, out of all the developed countries, United States rank like at the very bottom of all the employment protection workers have. So what that means is, like, in practical terms, like if you pursue like a legal claim, or if you're like, my boss did X, Y, and Z, it might be unfair. Like, let's say you have an argument with your boss about something minor. You never had any performance issue for like 5 years, and you had like a small fight with him about it, and just a small disagreement, and your boss, maybe you got reassigned to a new boss, and because of the disagreement your boss decides to fire you. That would be completely legal thing to do in the US, and it might be illegal in Germany, but in the US, like, something really small or something which might feel very unfair might still be legal thing for your employer to do. So if you're bringing a claim against your employer, former employer, there it's gonna be an uphill battle to make sure, like, to have a situation where your claim fits into the legal bounds of it. For example, like, I had to prove discrimination. Like, if your boss treats you like garbage, that's completely legal thing to do. But if your boss treats you like garbage because of your protected characteristic, then it's illegal. And I knew like it was happening because of the protected characteristic, but like, now you need to sit down and compare about, like, hey, I'm Indian, I'm brown, but the white guys were treated more favorably than me, so that's why it's illegal. And that's what happened. But like, why is it that treating like garbage in the first place is completely legal thing to do if it's not because of a protected characteristic? Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, if you're being treated like garbage, there shouldn't be like any reason for you to prove, oh, it's because of my race or my gender or my genetic information or something. It should be the norm that, hey, you can't treat people badly. Like, you need to give a baseline level of respect and ensure the well-being of your employees. Like, this isn't the law. So the first point, the employment laws are really bad, and bringing a claim is in itself really challenging. So now let's say you do find a claim. You are like, all right, so here is comparative evidence. I'm being treated like garbage because I'm brown. White people are treated more favorably, and that is indeed true. You have comparative evidence against your employer. So now it comes to the topic of finding an employment lawyer, right? So because you can't file a claim against by yourself, right? Which is another thing. Like, I pay taxes to the government, and the government doesn't really do anything. It's like I still need to find a lawyer. I do want to say, like, let's make the second point about the EEOC. So let's say you are being treated bad. You bring a discrimination claim against your former employer. You go to the EEOC. The EEOC in itself is extremely understaffed. It's going to take you a while to get an intake appointment with them. So close to a month or two. Once you do get an appointment with them, the EEOC investigation process in itself could take anywhere between 4 days to 4 years. You heard that right, 4 years. EEOC could take up to 4 years to resolve an employment case, and on average it takes about year to year and a half to investigate. And you might think at the end of the investigation the justice is served, your employer pay a bunch of money. No. EEOC doesn't have any enforcement authority over it. All EEOC does is they're like, oh, something bad happened, let us investigate. And at the end, yeah, something bad happened, here's your right to sue letter. So go ahead and find a lawyer and do years of litigation against them. So it's like, why even investigate if the only thing happening at the end is a right to sue letter? And that's even the thought process of EEOC investigator themselves. Like, most of the investigators themselves are going to be like, well, let me tell you the actual statistics of it. About 96% of the EEOC charges which are filed by plaintiff by the employees do not result in a reasonable cause. And the ones who do, they also end up with the right to sue letter. So you're back to square one, where you need to find an employment lawyer to represent you. So there is that. So that's the second. There is no government agency which can properly enforce. Like, you need to have a lawyer at the end of the day. The third problem is actually finding a lawyer themselves. So you might be like, well, finding a lawyer shouldn't be hard, right? There are so many ads we see all the time. Just call a lawyer in your state. But the truth is, lawyers work on a contingency basis. Because as a plaintiff, you probably don't have the money to pay 50 grand to a lawyer. So the way contingency basis work is, let's say if you win $100,000, the lawyers keep the 50 grand from it and you get to keep 50 grand from it. I think that model in itself is kind of flawed. Like, if your damages are worth 100 grand, why would you only, even if you win, which is like a whole story in itself, which I'll get to in a second, even if you win, you only got 50% of what you should have gotten because of the contingency model. So only if US has some type of an employment insurance, so if you get fired, the insurance would pay to hire a lawyer. The script is actually going to flip. So instead of the lawyer being the buyer to choose which case to pick from, you get to be the buyer and you get to pick which lawyer is going to be best fit for your case. But because lawyers are taking such a huge risk to take your lawsuit, it's gonna be such a huge risk. They're gonna be extremely picky. They're going to be like, well, did you sign an arbitration agreement? Did you got raped in your employment lawsuit? Oh, there was, or did your employer just said you racial slurs or something? Obviously, a normal employer doesn't reach to that level that level of extreme, right? So if it doesn't like, why does it needs to be so extreme to the point where it's viable to bring an employment lawsuit? Like, if there is like just a discrimination where the brown people or the people of color didn't got promoted, but the white people got promoted, that's discrimination. If they both had the same performance, right? If they were both deserving and the only thing different was their color of the skin, then in that case that's discrimination. But like, it's not severe where the employer or the managers were saying racial slurs to the employees. So it's so the employment lawyers are extremely picky in terms of like, if you don't have the direct evidence, if you don't have like the acts, like I don't know the actual word to describe it, it's like the extreme erroneous conduct by your employer, then it's not really worth it for your for the employment lawyer to bring that claim against them. So I think there is another fourth aspect to it also. So I talked about like the first sector, the actual claims, bringing those claims themselves are going to be hard. The second one is the lack of federal agency or state agency which actually has the authority to enforce it. And third, lawyers are extremely picky. A personal experience, so like, I had to get on a consultation with 84 lawyers. Like, let that sink in. I had to speak with more than 84 lawyers before I found someone who is willing to take my case. So like, you could just imagine how challenging it would be to find an employment law given these three situations. So if that wasn't enough, there is this another thing invented by the corporate America by lobbying the government, called arbitration. So even if you go through this whole hassle of documenting everything, you have all the burden of proof, you still manage to find an employment lawyer. The fourth problem is like arbitration. It's like, so when you join a company, when you sign that employment offer, one of the things you would do is like, the employer is going to slide in this document called arbitration agreement. What that means is that arbitration just means like, you're waiving off your rights to pursue any legal claim against your employer in front of a jury. So if there is a problem, if you have a problem, you need to go to an arbitrator, not a judge. The catch about it is that the arbitrator itself is paid by the employer. So like, they're getting paid $1,500 an hour to judge on your case. Who do you think is they are going to give the verdict in favor of? It's like the system in itself is corrupt. Like, the arbitration itself is like, and US employers are allowed to make arbitration a condition of your employment. Like, if you refuse to sign the arbitration agreement, they could choose not to hire you. Like, isn't that crazy? And I think the last thing I want to talk about is the years of litigation which goes into it. In an employment lawsuit, all it takes is like, no matter what type of conflict it is, like, all it takes is a normal, reasonable person to look at your situation and be like, all right, so these are the facts of this side, these are the facts of that side, what happened, here's the verdict. But in the US, the getting to that stage, getting to trial, or getting someone to look at the facts is like so complex, so so many steps are involved in it, to the point where it doesn't make any, like, it just elongates the entire process. There is like the arbitration. If arbitration fails, then you go to trial. That the trial failed, then there is an option to appeal. Like, the whole thing could take years to complete. Like, on average, an employment lawsuit goes for about 2 years, right? Imagine, like, you ideally want to move on with your life at that point, but like, why does it take 2 years to get justice? Why can't a judge be available next week to look at the facts of both the parties and give a verdict? Why does it take years, not weeks? Like, if it takes months, like let's say 2 months, then still then it's fine. But like, why does it takes 2 years, maybe 3 years, to get justice? So what's really like the point of giving taxes? Like, you're giving taxes to the state to protect the weaker part from getting exploited. But the government doesn't do anything to protect us. So like, given these 5 hurdles I talked about, the actual reality of suing your former employer is extremely challenging. It's a lot of hard work of finding a lawyer, a lot of pain you have to go through to pursue a legal claim. And the worst part is like, your employer knows this. Your employer knows like how challenging it is for an employee to bring a lawsuit against them. That's why they engage in illegal conducts. They know, like, this guy, like, self-engineering is gonna be like 1 in 1,000 people who might bring a lawsuit against us. Most people are like, oh man, this is gonna take years and we don't even know if we are gonna get anything or not. So like, most people don't even pursue the legal claim because of this exact same reason, because how time consuming and how challenging it is to bring that lawsuit against your employer. So given these facts, I think US is not the place you want to be if you want good protections, you want equal rights, you don't want your employer to have all the power over you, and especially if you are a foreign worker, like you're on a visa or something. It's gonna be a whole time, but it's gonna be a topic of a whole other video if you're like on a visa or something. So I think that's all for this video. It's certainly challenging to pursue a legal claim, and it's nowhere like how it's portrayed in the movies. So that's all for today. Talk to you later. Bye.